Welcome to lecture number 6, unit 2, analog microelectronic circuits. And this is our sixth lecture on bipolar junction transistor. We were doing DC numericals on the other day. Let us continue that with one more numerical based on a PNP transistor. So you can quickly solve this. The equation, the question, the circuit remains same. The only difference is we have a PNP transistor instead of an NPN transistor. So this is plus 18 volts. This is 2.2K. This is 150K. This is 470K, 3.3K, and beta equals 60. All right, the question is same as before. You are asked to find all the terminal currents. So I'll just mark this is IE, this is IC, and so incoming. So this is IB. You are asked to find IB, IC, and IE. Also to find this voltage, which is VB, this is VE, and this is VC. Right. So I hope you can do this question, but anyway, I'll wait for 2 or 3 minutes. You can just solve. So it is same as the previous. You have to convert the base loop or the resistors, and the resistors on this side should be converted into a Thevenin equivalent. So a Thevenin voltage in series with a resistance RTH you can convert, and then you can start solving. So once you convert this into that equivalent circuit, the rest you can do. So I want you guys to report me back what is RTH and what is VTH. Yeah, so all of you try. So the difference is you have a PNP transistor where P is connected to the plus 18 volt supply through the resistance. Right. So again, our assumption is the transistor will be in active region by looking at the P and P terminals connected to appropriate. This is P, this is N, and this is P. Emitter based junction, definitely it will be forward biased because P is connected to 18 through 2.2, but N is connected to 18 through 150K. And by evaluating the potentials VE, VB, and VC, finally we can prove that whether the assumption of active region holds good or not. Yeah. So, any answers on this? Yes, VTH is 13.64 and RTH is 113.7. Yes, that is right. So everyone, all of you should try this. Answer is 113.7K and VTH is 13.64 voltage. This is RTH and VTH. Right. So rest you can try. All of you can try. Let me just write down the answer here. You will get IB as 14.7 microamps, IC as 0.885 milliamps, and yeah, IE, please find it. If you IC and IB is there, you can find. And VB also you should find because VB will be VTH minus the current IB into 113.7K. So that please, yeah, I'm asking you to find that. I'll just write the VC voltage minus 13.10 volts. Kindly check these values, and if there is any doubt, please come back. We will see where is the problem, right? So let me give another question now. So those who are still working on the same question, please do that offline. Even after class, you can try. Right. Now, this is another question where this is VCC. You have a resistance, then it is connected to a transistor here, which is grounded. Is there any background noise from my side?
Not now, sir.
Okay.
Earlier it was slightly.
Oh, okay,
Fine.
okay. Yeah. So this is 10K, this is 300K, this is 127K, this is 70K, that's all. And this beta is equal to 20. Also given that the transistor is silicon. The question is, you are supposed to find the VCC. You are supposed to find VCC voltage. All the resistor values are given, right? So you can try, you can start now, you can try now. I can give you 2 to 3 minutes for you to report me the answer. Chaya BS, Chaya BS, are you there? Okay, Chaya is not there. Nishant, Nishant, are you there? Nishant. Okay, Nishant, you are also absent today. Okay. Parnika, are you there? Parnika.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Parnika, you understood this question, how to go about this question?
Uh, yes, sir. Kind of. I'm trying.
All right, okay. Okay, so I would just leave this question for you guys now. You can work out this question. All right, Chai, that is okay. Yeah. So you can work out this question and you can post answers later in the class group, right? Okay. So let me move on. Let me try to solve one more question now, and we'll come back to this. So I'll explain this once. So the next question is an extension of what we have done yesterday. This is plus 15. Kindly check whether we have solved this question yesterday, 100K, 50K. 5K and 3K. Whether is that the same question or it is different?
Yes, sir. Solved, sir. This.
Same, no? Okay, all right. So the same question only. I am just doing one more addition here. So from here, it is connected to a PNP transistor, where the collector of PNP is connected to ground through a resistance of 2.7K, and emitter is connected to the same 15.5 volts through a resistance here. This is plus 15 volts, and this resistance is 2K. Right. So what was the beta we assumed yesterday? I think 100, right?
Yes, sir. 100.
Yeah, we took it as 100. Yeah. Now the question remains same. Determine. The question is determine the voltages at all nodes and currents through all branches. This is the question. Right. So if you look at this question, you will definitely identify that, yeah, it is 100. I got it. So it is, we can identify that the same question we have done yesterday, except for the additional PNP transistor, which is connected at the collector of the first transistor. Say I'll call this as Q1 and this as Q2. Right. Now, what we will do first is, again, we'll go with the same assumption that Q1 is an active mode. Now, if Q1 is an active mode, we can actually solve this numerical, and I'll take the same values what we got as before. Say my VB1 value, what I got yesterday was 4.57. Let me know if the answers, if the values are not matching with what we got yesterday. IB1 was 12.8 microamps. Then IE1 was 1.29 milliamps. IC1 was 1.28 milliamps. Right. This is what we calculated yesterday. Now we also calculated the collector voltage yesterday, and we got some value for the collector voltage. But now we know that, okay, let me mark, I know VB. And yeah, so this emitter current will definitely give some emitter voltage, but now collector voltage, there will be some difference, since in the new circuit we have connected another transistor at the output. Now like how to understand how will be the current flow here. So the emitter current is current at the terminal of this transistor, base current is this, and collector current is actually the current at the terminal of this collector. So previously, clearly, listen carefully. Previously, if this branch is not there, say if this is open, IC will be the same current flowing through 5K, right? But now I have an additional branch here. That means previously the current through 5K will be equal to IC. Now IC is actually the sum of the current through this and the current flowing here. So let me mark the current in this PNP transistor. Emitter current is flowing in, so collector current and base current will be flowing out. So now I have some IB2 which is flowing from here. That IB2 along with the current through the resistance 5K is constituting our collector current. Now is that clear? The point what I mentioned now, is that clear? Can I get a response? So in this question, what I have done is, I assumed that this connection is not there. If this connection is not there, all the conditions will be same as previous. Now if I bring back this connection, the only difference will be in the actually in the collector current, right? So collector current, so previously the collector current was entirely through from 5K, but now that is contributed by this IB2 also, right? So that is
Sure, excuse me, sir.
yes, yes.
Sir, in the first transistor, the IV current is flowing towards the transistor, sir. But in second transistor, it is flowing away from the transistor, no, sir?
Yes, yes. Can you tell me
Yeah,
what is the reason for that? What can be the
sir,
reason?
I don't know,
Sir, it's
sir.
PNP, so
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
So the first one is an NPN transistor, and the second one is a
Oh, correct,
PNP
correct, sir.
transistor. Yeah, no problem, no
Yes.
problem. Yeah, we have to discuss. Then only we will realize. Otherwise, no. Like we will have an assumption that that is an NPN transistor itself, right? So that is a PNP. That is why the current is marked as different. Thank you for asking that. Yes, so probably others also would have noticed the same thing. Now, so I hope that is clear, right? So now what I'll do is, I cannot take the same collector current as before. The reason is, I know that even the collector current is different. That is not the same as before, right? So, so that means there will be subtle difference in all the parameters what we calculate. So we will actually do this in some level of iterations. We will repeat the steps so that we may reach to some accurate result, right? So what I will do first is, as a first step, what I will do is I'll assume IB2, which is flowing from the base of the second transistor, is much smaller than IC1. So this is IC1, IB1, IE1. This is IE2, this is IC2, and this is IB2. So in order to start with this calculation, in order to arrive at the terminal currents, the terminal voltages and the currents. So what I'm doing is I'm assuming that the base current is much smaller than IC1. That is in fact true, because your base current will be always smaller compared to your IC1, right? Now, if that is my assumption, so we will validate all our assumptions at the end of this problem. So if this is true, I can write that VC1, which is actually the collector point here, this is VC1, can be approximated as 15 minus IC1 into RC1. That is what we have done yesterday. So what was the VC1 value we calculated yesterday? Can I get response? What was the value we calculated yesterday? Yeah, it was 8.6 volts, right? Yeah, so it is equal to 8.6 volts, right? So again, my initial assumption was Q1 is inactive. Now by seeing the voltage VC1 as 8.6 and VB as 4.7 and VE, yeah, so VB as 4.7, definitely emitter based junction is forward biased and collector based junction is reverse biased. This can ensure that Q1 is inactive, right? I'll definitely validate this at the end. Now, uh, let us look at the transistor Q2. So for Q2, we know that if you look at Q2, the emitter of Q2 is connected to 15 volts through a resistance of 2K, right? Now, since emitter, so if I look at a PNP transistor, this is the first time we are dealing with a PNP transistor in a numerical. So if you look at a PNP transistor, this is P, this is N, this is P. So emitter based junction should be forward biased and the collector based junction should be reverse bias. Now, since P is connected to 15 volts, right? And I know the collector point now, sorry, the base is now, it is equal to VC1. Now, since VC1 is 8.6 and emitter is 15, I can for sure say that this junction is forward biased, right? So I will make that point here. Since emitter 2 is connected to 15, which is much higher 15 and base 2 is at 8.6. Actually, it is safe to assume that Q2 is also in active mode. Again, at the end of this numerical, we will validate this also, right? So it is very safe to assume that. Now let me look at, yeah, please. Regarding, this is for? Okay, please. Yeah. All right. So E2 is connected to 15 and B2 is to 8.6. So Q2 is in active mode. That is very clear. Now let me write what is VE2. So what will be VE2? Can I get some? Can I get an answer here? How can I come to the value of VE2? VE2 is actually this point. This is VE2. I know what is VC1. So how will I write what is VE2, the emitter voltage? I do not know the current IE2 current is not known, and I also assume that IB2 is very, very small. Now, how will I find the voltage at E2? Any answers? Can I get some response? Can I get some response in the chat box? So we know that Q2 is in active mode. 9.3. Very good. How is that 9.3? Yes, 0.7 greater. Very good. So Q2 is in active. So others who did not get the answer, let me explain. So this Q2 transistor is in active mode. If it is in active mode, for a PNP transistor, if it is in active, base emitter voltage can be considered as 0.7. Right. Now this node voltage is at VC1 is at 8.6. So if I add uh, plus, this is my plus minus. So if I add 0.7 to the existing voltage, which is equal to VBE active, I can get VE2. So what is VE2? It is equal to sorry 8.6 plus 0.7, which is equal to 9.3 volts. Very good question. Yes, and even Pradyumna. So others also would have noticed now. Probably these are the first time we are coming across these kind of solutions, right? That is okay. That you will be familiar from now on. Now, since I know VE2, now I can easily find what is IE2. So what is IE2? IE2 is the current flowing here, that can be written as 15 minus VE2 is 9.3 divided by 2K, that will give you IE2. So what is IE2? I'll be quickly, can I get answers for that? IE2, can someone calculate? Yeah, let me write the answer. It is 2.85 milliamps. So I'll get IE2 as 2.85 milliamps. Right. Now, okay. Now, how can I write IC2? So IC2. So if you know IE2, I can find IC2 as alpha into. Now I know I can write it as alpha into. So your IC2 is alpha into IE2. So your alpha value is 0.99. So that multiplied by your emitter current, which is 2.85 milliamps, will definitely give you what is your IC2 value, right? So given that beta is 100, so with that beta value, you will get alpha as 0.99. So that will result in your IC2 value, which is equal to 2.82 milliamps. Is that clear? Yes, yes, Laksh. Yeah, it was coming to 2.85. All right. Okay, so IC2 is 2.82. Now once if you now since I know IC2 value, you can directly find VC2. That is also one of our parameter to be evaluated, which is equal to IC2 into RC2, that you can find. So you can try that. Right. Okay, let me write the answer for that. So it will be equal to 7.62 volts. Right. Now you can see that. Yeah. Okay. Now initially. Yeah, by looking at the collector voltage VC1 and the emitter voltage, we have assumed that this junction is forward biased, and this should be reverse biased to say that the transistor Q2 is in active mode. Now look at the voltage of VC2. VC2 is 7.62, right? VC2 is 7.62, and our VB2 is actually 8.6, right? So you can definitely see there is a difference, and that your junction, your base is actually lower than collector, so collector base junction is actually reverse biased. That assumption is also valid now, right? Now, so all these calculations we have done by assuming that our IB2 is very small compared to IC1. So what is the meaning of that? I was actually neglecting the value of IB2, right? But that will definitely give some error to the calculations what we have done. That means because your original IB2 is not 0. So let me calculate IB2 now. So how can I calculate IB2? IB2 can be written as IE2 divided by beta 2, or the beta of the transistor plus 1. That will give you around 28 microamps as your IB2. That will result in around 28 microamps. You can check that, right? Now, what was my initial assumption? I assumed that IB2 is much smaller than IC1. So this is 28 micro. And what is IC1? IC1 was 1.28 milli. So this is actually true. My initial assumption of keeping IB2 very small as IC1 is actually true. And what is the value? 28 micro is very small compared to 1.28 milliamps, right? Now, by this actually we arrived at the terminal voltages and current, but still since we started with a small assumption of IB2 very small, even though that assumption is true, we can actually go ahead and find the actual voltages. So when I say actual voltages, since I know now all the currents are known, I can actually find VC1 as previously we wrote VC1 as 8.6. Now let me calculate the VC1 with this new IB value. So how will I find VC1? And to find VC1, I should know what is the current through RC1. Now the current through RC1 is the current IE1 current is 1.29 milliamps, and from that, yeah, so the IB2 current is 10 micro. So let me get the current through RC1. So the current through RC1 is equal to the collector current, which is the current through the transistor, which is this current. From this, I should minus the other current, right? So that is IB2. From IC1, I should minus IB2. So that is equal to 1.28 milliamps minus 28 microamps. That will result in 252, I guess. You can cross check. With this, if I calculate new VC1, VC1 can be written as VCC minus 5K into this new current 1.252 milli. That is equal to 8.74. Right. So what was my initial assumption? My VC1 was 8.6. Now the new value is actually 8.74, which is very close. So with this, if I do the second round of calculation with the new VC1, if I find VE2, which will be 0.7 greater to this, that will be equal to 9.44 volts. So what was the value which I have taken before? VE2 was 9.3, but the actual value is 9.44. With that, actually, we can find new IE2, which is 15 minus 9.44 divided by 2, which is equal to 2.78 milliamps. My previous IE2 was 2.82, which is now 2.78 milliamps, right? So we can keep on, we can complete this iteration by finding IC value, which is 2.75 milliamps, will result in VC2 value, which is 7.43 volts. And finally, we'll get the, you can end up with calculating the second round of IB2, which will be 27.5 micro, which is very close to the first, right? I hope you understood this. Is that clear? Now, I don't know how many of you are thinking why we have to repeat this calculation again. So if a circuit of this kind is given, where you cannot do anything else rather than starting with this. So you can actually, whenever a circuit is given, you have first actually consider only this part, the first part, and evaluate all the voltages. And since the base current is flowing here, you can go ahead with an assumption that this base current will be much smaller to the collector current. That is in fact true, because one is in micro and another one is in milli, right? So with that assumption, I can start and I can proceed. Yeah, so now even if you stop here, even if you stop with this, that should be perfectly fine, because you are not seeing a significant change in you are not seeing a significant change in the things, right? So so you can actually, yeah, as Kirtana, as you are asking, you can have actually iterations of one or two, but even if you're not doing the second round of iteration also, it is fine in this case, because the assumption of IB2 much smaller to IC will be valid. I hope I answered that. All right, okay. Are there any doubts regarding to this question?
Will IB2 always come out to be much less than
Yes,
IC1?
yes, no, because you know that the relation of IC and IB. Okay, now let me explain that with respect to the device itself. So this is your emitter, this is a base, and this is a collector, right? So the structure, the transistor itself is made in such a way that emitter will be heavily doped, base will be thin and lightly doped, and collector will be moderately doped. So the amount of base current what we need, or the way the structure is designed is in such a way that the base current will be always very small, because of the thin, the very lightly doped nature, as well as the structure itself is very thin, right? So for that reason, practically, if you look at the values of collector and base current, one will usually come in terms of micro and the other will come in terms of milli. Is that clear? Can I get some response? Can I proceed, or do you have some doubt with this question? All right, so others, probably you may you can take little more time to understand, and if there are doubts, you can come back. So let me just move on and teach something where we have stopped actually developing the small signal model. Okay, so so when I take a transistor and when I connect base to emitter voltage here and collector to emitter voltage on this side, VCE. So we are expecting collector current IC, right? So if you remember, I told that initially in an ideal BJT, or the variation of IC with respect to VC was constant. I don't know how many of you remember that. Because we wrote IC as IS into e to the power of VBE by VT, and IC is not depending on VC. If that is the case, you can mark the CAR as something like this. So here is the point where I stated that this is actually acting as a constant current source. Right, this was our initial point of discussion, and based on this we have actually drawn a model, and if you remember, we have drawn that model as the large signal model as BJT here. So this is collector, this is base, and this is emitter, and we marked this as IS into e to the power of VBE by VT. Right, a large signal current can be expressed in that form. Now we are actually looking at a very practical scenario. Okay, so let me explain in this way. Okay, let me ask this question first. what will happen if your collector to emitter voltage, this VC voltage, if it is I don't know how many of you noticed that even before when I have drawn this graph, I was not actually connecting with respect to this y-axis. I thought some of you will ask that question. I have drawn in this form. I have started this line from here, somewhere here. So my question is, what will happen if your VCE is becoming very close to 0, or what will happen if your VC keep on reducing? Will this current will the current remains as constant, or is there any difference happen? Will there be any difference to this collector current? Whether my question is clear? What will happen for low values of VCE?
It'll reduce
What will reduce? Current will reduce.
the ICM.
Okay, why current will reduce?
Because you need a certain voltage to push the electrons, right? So
All right, that is very much required. That is right. Other thing is, we know that this current is not depending on VCE. Yes, I think Pradyumna. Yes, you told me. Yeah. Who answered now? Who unmuted and
tell me,
spoke now?
Karthik.
Yeah, Karthik. Yeah, I think you are also coming to the same point. So what will happen is, if you reduce VCE beyond a value, there are chances that the junction will turn from reverse bias to forward bias. Right. So let me explain in this way. Say, for example, you have a VB equal to 0.7, and you have a VC which is equal to say 0.3. Right. Now your base is at 0.7 and collector is at 0.3. So you have a VCB voltage which is closely equal to 0.4. Right. Now if this VC reduces from 0.3 to 0.2, or if you have a VB of 0.8 here, say okay, I'll take this as 0.7 only. Now if at all this is trying to fall to 0.2, what will happen? This junction will actually turn forward bias. How can I say it will turn forward bias? Yesterday we saw that if there is a PN junction, if there is a junction, and if that junction is having a voltage close to 0.4 or 0.5, more than that, there are possibilities that that junction may turn forward bias. So the similar thing will happen here. And if the junction turns forward bias, then the electrons emitted by the emitter will not be collected by the collector, because there is no so this is my structure. You have emitter, you have base, you have collector, and this junction is reverse biased. There is a potential which is reverse biasing this junction. Now the electrons which is reaching base, because of this thin nature, very few electrons will be recombined there. Most of the electrons will be collected by the collector. Now collector can collect and sweep the electrons across this reverse bias junction only if there is a potential available here, and only if there is a because of this reverse bias, actually electrons are getting attracted. Now if it is turning to forward bias, definitely that will not happen, or you can see that the collector current collector will not be able to collect electrons from emitter, or your collector current will definitely decay. It will reduce. The reason is your transistor is entering into saturation region here. Even though it was active here, as your VCs keep on reducing, your collector base junction will turn forward bias and your collector current will actually drop. Right. Now let me go for a further discussion. Say you have a transistor, this is emitter, say this is base, and this is collector. Now if my emitter base junction is forward bias, so as soon as a PN junction is formed, we know that there will be a very small depletion layer formed because of the diffusion of electrons, and further if you want to further current will flow because of the forward bias effect of the junction. Similarly, on the other side you have a reverse bias. So reverse bias means you have a wider depletion region, right? Say this is the condition initially, and let me look at the width of the base, the effective width of the base. Now I'm bringing some other new terms here just to explain one effect. So say this is the width of the base. Right. Now say your VB value is fixed. So VB is fixed at some value. That means your emitter base junction is forward biased. There is no doubt in that. Now, if I increase this collector to emitter voltage, if VCE is increased, if I'm increasing VCE, basically I'm increasing VC. Now that will result in more reverse bias in the collector base junction. So if VC is increased, this will actually result in a more reverse bias at collector base junction, right? So this will happen. Now if collector base junction is getting more reverse bias, what will happen? Your depletion region width will actually widen. Your depletion region width will widen. Now we know that the doping levels of these two regions, this is moderately doped, this is moderately doped, and this is lightly doped, right? So the chances are more that the depletion region will widen more towards the base region. Why? Because it is lightly doped. So since it is lightly doped, the number of free carriers are less. So whenever there is a reverse bias voltage, the free carriers will be easily taken away, or the formation of depletion region will be more towards this side and less towards this side. So this always depends on doping. Now, when your VCE is fixed, and if you are trying to increase VCE, that will result in more reverse bias. That will result in a reduction of the effective base width. So previously, if it was W, now because of this more VCE, it would have been reduced to W dash. Right. Now, can you think of this effect? What will happen if your base width is reduced? If base width is reduced, the electrons emitting from the emitter will be less recombined there, or we will have less loss of electrons in the base and more will actually reach collector. Or other way, we can actually relate in this form. So I know that IC is IS into e to the power of VBE by VT. Now, if you look at IS, which is the reverse saturation current, which is the current, minority carrier current across the junction, this is inversely proportional to width of the width of the base. So these things we did not see in this has to be done in device physics. So I'm taking this directly. So this reverse saturation current is inversely related to W. Now what happens if W reduces? If W reduces, the width reduces, the effective base width reduces, that will result in, that will shoot up in, the IS will shoot up, that will result in a proportionate increase in IC also. Right. So what am I talking here? What am I explaining here? So initially I assumed that there was no dependency on VCE. IC was not dependent on VCE. IC was assumed as constant. But now we understood that as we keep on increasing VCE, the depletion region width will widen. That will reduce the effective base width. That in turn will affect IS. IS will increase. If IS is increasing, IC will definitely increase. So that can be observed as a increase in collector current in this form. So previously we assumed that the current will be constant, but that is not the real case. There will be slight increase in the collector current, right? So whenever you have, so you initially had a slope something like this. It was there was no slope. That means the resistance will be infinity, but now you will actually get a finite resistance. You can compare the same thing with your MOSFET. MOSFET also initially we stated that for an ideal MOSFET, current is not depending on VDS. ID versus VDS graph was a straight line. Then we understood that as you increase VDS, there is an effect called as channel length modulation that resulted in an increase in current, and that effect was included in the model also as a small signal output resistance. Similarly, so what happened here? The effective base width was changed, or effective base width was modulated. So this effect or this phenomena is called as base width modulation. And this phenomena was observed and studied first by a scientist called as J.M. Early. and we call this effect as early effect. Right. So you have an equivalent phenomena in MOSFET as channel length modulation, but now here it is base width modulation. Now the same way, this is often studied and often characterized using one more parameter. So if I extrapolate this graph, that will actually meet this x-axis at some point. Say that will meet at this point, and we call this as VA. In fact, your VCE here is equal to minus VA, where VA, VC is equal to minus VA. So it is minus VC, right? Yeah. So that means VA is actually a positive number, and typically it is observed that this value is from 10 to 100. This will range from 10 to 100. Now you will be wondering, what is this VA? This VA is called as early voltage. But this is obtained by actually extrapolating the graph. It is not actually a straightforward calculation. Now, how we have included this effect in the current of MOSFET? If you remember, we wrote ID equal to ID SAT into 1 plus lambda VDS, or we wrote this as ID SAT into 1 plus VDS by VA. Similarly, here we will write, previously we wrote IC as IS into e to the power of VBE by VT. Let me call this as IC dash, because this is the current without any base width modulation. Now, if I write a current with the base width modulation, I can write it as IS into e to the power of VB by VT into, to include this effect, I'll write it as 1 plus VCE by VA. Similar way how I have written for MOSFET. Right, or I can further write this as IC dash into 1 plus VCE by VA. Now, what is the effect of this base width modulation? Previously, if you remember, we have drawn the model of BJT like this, or between collector and emitter, it is acting as a constant current source, ideal current source. For an ideal current source, the output resistance or the resistance across that is infinity, but now we have to include a finite resistance here. So how to get that finite resistance? If you look at this, the slope of this graph will give you inverse of the resistance. So I'll write this as dou IC by dou VCE at a constant VBE, and inverse of this will actually give you R naught. So how will I perform that? To calculate R naught, I have to, R naught inverse can be calculated as dou IC by dou VCE. So if I do that here, it will be equal to IC dash into, this will be 0 and it will be 1 by VA. Or I can say R naught is equal to VA by IC dash. Right. So this is the finite output resistance. This has to be included in the model along across the ideal current source. So previously what we have written. All right. So is this clear? Whatever we have done. So I'll just conclude. Yeah, I'll just revise that. What we the phenomena what we learned now is called as early effect or base width modulation, and that is typically because of the increase in the reverse bias across the collector base junction, that is resulting in a shoot up in IS, the reverse saturation current, that is leading to an increase in collector current, and that has to be incorporated in the characteristics in this form. Right. So now the early effect or this base width modulation or channel length modulation is modeled using a parameter to show that yes, this device is having early effect or this device is having channel length modulation, and that is usually denoted by this voltage what we refer as VA, early voltage, and that value for MOSFET is varying from 10 to 100 typically. So it can be more also depending on how we fabricate the BJT. I don't know whether I'm using MOSFET for BJT now. Sorry, what we are discussing is actually BJT. So any doubts on this? So probably you can think for the doubts. So meanwhile, what I will do is I will just share my screen. All right. I hope. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah. So what you're seeing on the screen now is a BJT. And BJT, I need yeah. So one thing I forgot to tell. So probably you would have studied. Definitely, you would have studied the characteristics of transistor in your semester one or even in your PUC. So there, whenever we draw output characteristics, we will draw output characteristics for a constant base current, for constant input current. Right. So in order to obtain the characteristics, what I have done here is I have fed actually input using a 10 microampere base current that like, and the output side actually I have connected to a voltage. So the other way what I can do here is I can actually connect a source here, put a resistance, and then varying will actually give you some current. This is for the simulation purpose. I have actually connected a current here, and VC is connected on the other side. Now, what is my intention? My intention is actually to plot IC, the current here versus VC, and see whether the current is constant or is there any whether your output resistance is infinity or your output resistance is a finite value. So to that, for doing that, I'm just clicking on the DC sweep analysis. Those who yeah, okay, yeah, DC sweep analysis. So DC sweep is nothing but you are sweeping or varying a voltage on x-axis and getting some response. Most of the time we'll actually go for a current in the y-axis. Now source 1, I have taken VC. I'm varying from say some 0 to 3 with some increment of 0.001, and at the output I am selecting the collector current IC. The Q1 current is directly here. I'm selecting that. So I'm expecting a plot of IC versus VC for that current of 10 microamps. So I'm just giving this run. Yeah, so that is giving me actually a plot here. I hope you can see the plot. If you look at the plot, it looks like actually it is constant. It is constant, but you can see that when it is reaching a point somewhere here, which is this point. So here actually your value is let me say it is this x2, right? Yeah. So this is 0.27. You can see that this is my second. There are two. These are two cursors. So this is cursor 1 and this is cursor 2. You can see that the x2, the x-axis with the cursor 2 is actually x2. X2 value is 288.8119 milli. So I told that when your VC voltage drop below a potential, say some 0.3 or zero point 0.2, the collector base junction is becoming forward bias. That is why you are actually getting a reduction in the current. Now, the point of interest for us is not that. I want to see whether there is the resistance is finite or whether your current is constant at 3 milli or not. Right. So to do that, say this is cursor 1 and this is cursor 2. I kept at two different points, say at 1 and 2. I kept it 1 and 2, and you can directly read something here as dy by dx. Dy by dx is actually the slope of this graph. Now I know that output resistance is inverse of the slope. So dy by dx is 37.75 micro. So if I take the reverse of this or inverse of 37.75 micro, you will get the resistance. The resistance will come around 26.4 kilo. Right. So my initial assumption of an ideal BJT with a constant current source is not true physically. Practically BJTs are offering finite output resistance, and now in this case that value is close to what I told here is 26K. Is that clear? Whatever I showed and whatever I explained. Okay, let me come back. So what I will do now is I will, yeah, I can open for discussion since it is 1:28. So we will continue in next class. Thank you for joining today's class.